Devaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yasya Swarupam Kavayo Vipaschito. Yasya Swarupam Kavayo Vipaschito. Guneshu Darus Vivajata Vedasam. Guneshu Darush Vivajata Vedasam. Mitnanti Matna Manasa Didrikshavo. Mitnanti Matna Manasa Didrikshavo. Gudham Kriyarthair Nama Iritatmane. Gudham Kriyarthair Nama Iritatmane. Yasya Swarupam Kavayo Vipaschito. Guneshu Darush Vivajata Vedasam. Mitnanti Matna Manasa Didrikshavo. Gudham Kriyartar Nama Iritatmane. Yasya Swarupam Kavayo Vipaschito. Guneshu Darush Vivajata Vedasam. Mitnanti Mitna Manasa Didrikshavo. Gudham Kriyartaya Namat Iritatmane.
Swarupam Kavayo Vipaschito.
Yasya Swarupam Kavayo Vipaschito. Guneshu Darush Vivajata Vedasam.
Mitnanti Matna Manasa Didrikshavo.
Mitnanti Matna Manasa Didrikshavo. Gudham Kriyartaya Nama Iritatmane.
Yasya Swarupam Kavayo Vipaschito. Guneshu Darush Vivajata Vedasam. Matnanti Matna Manasa Didrikshavo.
The second and the third line. Mitnanti Matna. In the Roman transliteration, it's different from the Devanagari. In the Devanagari, it's Matnanti, but in the Roman transliteration, it's Mitnanti. What do you got?
Matnanti Matna Manaso Didrikshavo.
Matnanti Matna Manaso Didrikshavo. Gudham Kriyartaya Nama Iritatmane. kavayo vipaschito. Guneshu darushti vajata vedasam. Matnanti matna manasadi drikshavo. Udham priyartar nama iritatmane. Ladies? Yasya swarupam kavayo vipaschito. Guneshu darushvi vajata vedasam. Mata manasadi drikshavo. Udham priyartar nama iritatmane. Swarupam kavayo vipaschito. Guneshu darushvi vajata vedasam. Matnanti matna manasadi drikshavo. Budham priyartar nama iritatmane. Yasya, whose, Svarupam, form, Kavayaha, the greatly learned sages, Vipaschitaha, expert in ascertaining the absolute truth, Guneshu, in the material manifestation, consisting of the three modes of nature. Dharushu, in wood. Ewa, like. Jata, manifested. Vedasam, fire. Matnanti, stir. Matna, with a piece of wood used for producing fire. Manasa, by the mind. Didrikshavaha, who are inquisitive. Gudham, hidden. Kriya artai, by fruitive activities and their results. Namaha, respectful obeisances. Irita Atmane, unto the Lord, who is manifested. Translation. By manipulating a fire-generating stick, great saints and sages can bring forth the fire lying dormant within wood. In the same way, O Lord, those expert in understanding the absolute truth try to see you in everything, even in their own bodies. Yet you remain concealed. You are not to be understood by indirect processes involving mental or physical activities, because you are self-manifested. Only when you see that a person is wholeheartedly engaged in searching for you, do you reveal yourself. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The word kriyartai means, quote, by performing ritualistic ceremonies to satisfy the demigods, unquote. The word upaschitaha is explained in the Taittiriya Upanishad as follows. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyomam Soshnute Sarvam Kamang Saha Brahmana Vipaschititi. As Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text number 19, Bahunam janmanamante jnanavam mang prapadyante. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me. When one understands that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart and actually sees the Lord present everywhere, he has perfect knowledge. The word jatavedaha means, quote, fire which is produced by rubbing wood, unquote. In Vedic times, learned sages would bring forth fire from wood. Jatavedaha also indicates the fire in the stomach, which digests everything we eat and which produces an appetite. The word gudha is explained in the Svetashvatara Upanishad. Eko deva sarva bhuteshu gudaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is understood by chanting Vedic mantras. Sarva Vyapi Sarva Bhantantar Atma. He is all-pervading and he is within the heart of living entities. Karma Dhyakshaha Sarva Bhudvishaha. He witnesses all activities of the living entity. Sakshi Cheta Kevalo Nirgunascha. The Supreme Lord is a witness as well as the living force, yet he is transcendental to all material qualities. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitem Jana Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bangum Langayate Giri Yat Kripa Tadaham Bande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. So, this verse explains how the Lord, although approached in different ways by learned persons, and the examples given just as the saints and sages bring forth fire from that's lying dormant in agrani wood, so in the same way they try to understand the Lord through various processes. And in the Vedic literature we see some of the processes are performing Vedic sacrifices, acquiring knowledge, performing mystic yoga. So even though one may perform these activities, still the point being here that the Lord remains concealed. Then how does the Lord become revealed? And the answer is here that he's self-manifested. He reveals himself when he wants to. And when does he want to? That's also explained here. When he sees that the person who is searching after him is doing so wholeheartedly, with all his heart, with all his soul, that searcher is trying to understand the Lord, and then the Lord reveals himself. Here, it's mentioned about chanting Vedic mantras, so that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is understood by chanting Vedic mantras. So, our chant, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, is also a Vedic mantra. We're chanting that Vedic mantra so that we can understand more about the Lord. And certainly, that's the process. Chanting Hare Krishna helps us to understand more about the Supreme Lord. Right? We can know about Krishna's qualities. The atheists who don't chant, they refuse to chant the name of the Lord. Either they think that it's sentimentality, or they think that it's just superstition, chanting the holy name, but they don't chant. Srila Prabhupada mentioned once that I'm saying, chant, 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 and you're saying can't, can't, can't. Right? So we have a little saying, a little poster that we made up in Bombay. We have the picture of a guy kicking a T. So kick the T out of can't, and it becomes can. Right? Yes, we can chant. And by that chanting, we can understand more about the Lord. The atheists are so confused that they think that the material energy is working independently of the Supreme Lord. Everything is coming about by a combination of chemicals. There was a big bang, and due to some electrical charges, the amino acids formed life. Right? Isn't that what the scientists say? Who's a scientist here? Right? I remember Srila Prabhupada would be giving class, and then he would point to Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj and say, so what do the scientists say? Right? Where's our scientist? So they can't, due to their atheistic mentality, they can't appreciate the qualities of the Lord, how behind this material nature, and it's working so exactly, is the hand of the Supreme Lord. They can't appreciate that. But it's very easy for the devotees of the Lord to appreciate it because they chant the Lord's holy name. And by chanting the holy name of the Lord, they can understand about the Lord. They can understand that behind this behind the very complicated workings of this material energy, very complicated, how this tumultuary takes water and light and turns it into energy through the photosynthesis process. Right? It's a very complicated thing, how the water gets from the tip of its roots up to the top of the tree, right? And how the infusion of water from one cell to another at the bottom of the roots gradually lifts the water all the way up to the top leaf. So the scientists can analytically try to understand that, right? And they think that it's going on automatically. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example that when he was a young boy, in those days, there were horse carriages. He remembers when he went from Harrison Road, now it's called MG Road in Calcutta, and went to a place called Taliganj, where his Mama Badi was, where his uncle's house was. And where his uncle's house was, it was a village area. Right? So they would have nightly discussions of Mahabharata and Ramayana. So Srila Prabhupada remembers as a small boy, he would be in the horse carriage, and they would be, his mother and father, they would be discussing Mahabharata, Ramayana on the way to Taliganj. And there would be a discourse on Mahabharata, Ramayana. And on the way back, there would be discussion in the horse carriage. Right? And then at night, when he would dream, it would be Mahabharata and Ramayana. So when he was small, the carriages were pulled by horses. And then around the turn of the century, when he was a young man, there was all of a sudden horseless carriages. Right? Now we call them automobiles, or cars, vehicles. Right? So it was a little astonishing that now the carriage is moving without the horse. Right? So it's going automatically. But someone who knows more understands that there's a driver who is operating the machinery inside the carriage that is causing the carriage to move. Right? So the scientists are kind of like the persons who think that the horseless carriage is going on, it's operating on its own without anyone pulling it. Right? And the devotees realize, the devotees are more intelligent because they understand that behind the material nature is the Supreme Lord. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. This material nature, Krishna says, is working under my direction. So by chanting Hare Krishna, by chanting this Vedic mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, gradually we can understand more about the Lord's nature, how he controls the material nature. But then to actually have the Lord reveal himself, that's another thing, that's another topic, right? And what is required there is, in order to have the Lord actually reveal himself, when he reveals himself, first of all, he only reveals himself to his devotee. It's only by devotion that the Lord will reveal himself. Right? And if the Lord sees, talks about here as the Lord residing within the heart, Paramatma. So the mystic yogis, their effort is to perform different processes of yoga so that they can realize the Lord that is within the heart, the Paramatma. And they perform this eightfold mystic yoga system for many years in order to realize the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada had a whole series of lectures about the yoga system, right? Because yoga nowadays is very popular. It was popular in the 60s with a certain group of people they called hippies. But it's popular with everybody nowadays, yoga. So it's like a buzzword that everybody recognizes and identifies with, yoga. And even in India, it's had a great resurgence, yoga. There is one particular person who has popularized performance of yoga in India. Anyway, we won't mention any names, but that person, before he became very popular, he came to he used to stay in the Juhu guest house, in our guest house. And then he would do his pandal, come back at night. But then he became very, very big and he stopped staying in our guest house. But I remember one time he came and he was sitting in the lobby with some of his followers, and I went up to talk to him. And I said, you know, you're giving the pranayam, but what about the Harinam? I spoke to him in Hindi. And he said, oh, I'm telling everybody about dhyan, meditation. And I said, yes, dhyan, but what about Harinam? And then he just kept quiet. He didn't say anything. They advertise yoga, you know, you can do Kalpabhati and Udara Bandh and Anuloma Niloma, and that way you'll cure your diabetes, your high blood pressure, You won't, this disease and that disease. But that's not the goal of yoga, right? The goal of yoga is to realize the Lord in the heart, the Paramatma. And the sage and the saints, they were performing Patanjali's eightfold yoga system, mystic yoga system, to get that realization of the Lord. But people have some misconception. They don't understand the reason for performing yoga. And Lord Chaitanya is his process of Sankirtan Yagya is so powerful that if one performs it, one can very easily understand the Paramatma. It's like if anyone's had the experience of going out on book distribution, if you go to try to sell a book, you'll know that unless you meditate on the Lord in the heart, it's very difficult to sell a book. And when you sell a book, it's such a mystical, wonderful thing that you realize the only reason you were able to sell this book was by the intervention of the Paramatma. So even a new bhakta that goes out to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books can be in touch very easily with the Paramatma. Whereas other persons who perform the eightfold mystic yoga practice may go on for years and years and years and not come in touch with the Paramatma. So the holy name of the Lord is very powerful, and other processes that are mentioned, performing Vedic sacrifices, doing karmic activities, no matter how expert one may be in any of these things, they won't get one in touch with the Lord. And even chanting the holy name can bring us closer. Performing devotional service, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, all of these things will bring us closer to the Lord. But still, it's up to the Lord when He reveals Himself. It's not something that we can bring about by our own power. We can try to come closer, as mentioned here, but still the Lord will remain concealed. Unless and until that time that the Lord feels that the aspirant or the aspirant devotee is giving his everything to know Him, and then the Lord reveals Himself to that devotee. So today is also the Balaram Ras Purnima. And it was on this day 40 years ago that Srila Prabhupada gave an initiation ceremony here in this temple. And there were a number of first initiates and but there were more second initiates, I believe. And even a couple of devotees took sannyas on this day 40 years ago. So this day has special significance for me because it was 40 years ago that I got Brahman Diksha from Srila Prabhupada right here in that courtyard. And so it's kind of a special day for me. If somebody would have told me 40 years ago that, in 40 years you'll still be a devotee and you'll be given class on this day, I never would have believed them. But anyway, Balaram was there, and due to strong attachment, he wanted to see the devotees in Vrindavan. So he jumped in his chariot and rode over to Vrindavan. And he met Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, and they were very happy to see him. And he met his old friends who had grown up, that he used to play with, right, his cowherd boyfriends. And he embraced the ones, and some of the other ones who were younger came and touched his feet. It was an etiquette. And then the gopis came. And the gopis were very happy to see Balaram, and he was very, very respectful with them, spoke very respectfully to the gopis. And they inquired about Krishna, and they asked, does Krishna ever remember us? And then they started to feel separation from Krishna, and they were thinking, oh, how, Krishna cheated us. He said he would come back when he left, but he never came back. He must be having a hard time with those city girls there in Dwarka and Mathura, because they're more sharp. We're pretty simple, He could trick us, but it must not be so easy to trick them. Like this, they were talking to Balaram. And Balaram assured them that Krishna, definitely he's thinking of all of you always. And by the association of Balaram, the pain of separation from Lord Krishna was mitigated in the hearts of the gopis. And stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that Balaram, to ease the feelings of separation from Krishna, he performed rasa dance with the gopis in Vrindavan during this time, March, April, and April-May, right? And at that time when he was dancing with the gopis, there was Varuni juice available, and he was taking the Varuni juice. The daughter of the demigod Varuna, I believe, came in the form of Varuni juice. And so he was feeling this transcendental intoxicated mood, and he called for the Jamuna. This pastime is immortalized in the song by, what is it, Govinda. Vidyapati, right? He wrote the song. Gita Govinda. Jayadev Goswami, yes. That pastime is mentioned in the Dasavataram Stotram from Gita Govinda. And there he called the Jamuna. He wanted to take bath and sport with the gopis in the Jamuna. He called the Jamuna, but she didn't come. Seeing his intoxicated mood, she didn't take him very seriously, right? And therefore she didn't come. Seeing that she wasn't responding, Lord Balaram became angry, and he started to pull the Jamuna with his plow towards him, right? And he said, if you don't come, then I'll divide you into many small little rivulets, right? So then Jamuna ji could understand that she better go to Balaram. And she came before him and she fell at his feet and worshipped Lord Balaram. So this pastime is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. And we can meditate on Balaram. Srila Prabhupada, just after he installed Krishna and Balaram, he was on a morning walk, and he said, so now you have Balaram. Balaram is very merciful, right? Balaram can free you from material desires. That thing that is keeping us from the Lord, having the Lord reveal Himself to us, is all of our material desires. They're there residing within the heart. So Srila Prabhupada encouraged us to go to Balaram and say, "My dear sir, I have this problem. Please help me." And the real problem is that we have this, it's the anchor that's holding us back from progressing in spiritual life to go on to the ultimate goal of having Krishna feeling like revealing himself to us. So on this day, Balaram's Ras Yatra, Ras Purnima of Lord Balaram, we can pray to Balaram to become free from material desires so that we can reach the ultimate goal. And today also is the appearance day of Shyamananda and Vamsi Vadana, also known as Vamsi Vardhan, also known as Vamsi Das, great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, that after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he would take care of Mother Sachi and Vishnu Priya. And a great devotee of the Lord. He's supposed to be an expansion of Krishna's flute, and he wrote many beautiful, sweet prayers glorifying Lord Chaitanya. And after Vishnu Priya disappeared, he moved her deity of Gauranga over to Koladweep, where the deity of Lord Chaitanya that Vishnu Priya worshiped resides even to this day. And then the other great personality that appeared on this day is Shyamananda Prabhu. And Shyamananda was from Ambika Kalna, and his family had many siblings, but they died at an early age. So they gave him the name Dukhi. Dukhi means unhappy, right? So sometimes a family, they would give these strange names to the children just to ward off evil things. The nazar, as they say. वो nazar karte hain. तो nazar nahi dalne ka, which means they put the eye on him, the evil eye. So in order not to put the evil eye, they put a little thing like a black spot on their forehead, or put a black spot on the cheek, and that way people won't put the evil eye on their kid. Right? Huh? Nazar nahi karega, right? He won't put the eye on him. You ever seen that? Little kid got a black spot here, they put a little charcoal spot here, a little charcoal spot, beautiful little kid. So they think that if somebody looks at him too lustfully or something, it'll put the evil eye on him and be bad for his development. Right? Prabhuji, in the village, aisa hota hai na? Nazar nahi karega. Aisa sochte hain. So they do that also with names, because so many children, their family had died, so they put the name on him Dukhi. Unhappy. His name was Dukhi. So later he became, he always was interested in Lord Chaitanya, and he became a follower of Hridaya Chaitanya. And Hridaya Chaitanya initiated him in Ambika Kalna as Krishna Das. So he was known as Dukhi Krishna Das. And later on, with the permission of his guru, Hridaya Chaitanya, he came to Vrindavan. And he studied under Jiva Goswami here in Vrindavan. And Jiva Goswami had given him the seva to sweep every day the seva kunj, right? So he was doing faithfully that seva, and once while he was sweeping, he found an ankle bracelet. And he wrapped it up and put it in his dhoti, thinking that whoever owns it, he'll find them and then he'll give them that ankle bracelet. So after some time, two beautiful young ladies, they approached him and they said, "Our friend has lost her bracelet and we think that you have found it. Can you give it back to us and we'll give it to her?" And he said, well, let that person who actually lost it, I'll give it directly to her. So they said, okay, come with us. And then Radharani, from behind a tree, he saw that she was there, and he realized the situation, and he became very ecstatic. And there's different versions of the story, but the one that's in the Samadhi book, the 64 Samadhi book, is that she said, okay, you put the bracelet back on. And before he did that, he touched it to his forehead. And when he touched the bracelet to his forehead, it made a different form of tilak on his forehead. And then Radharani gave him the name Shyamananda. So when the word went all the way back to Ambika Kalna in Bengal, that your disciple, Dukhi Krishna Das, has changed his name to Shyamananda, and he's walking around with a new tilak on. So Hridaya Chaitanya became very upset. He said, the rascal, I sent him to Vrindavan, now he's made his new tilak and changed his name. So he went all the way to Vrindavan, and as soon as he saw Krishna Das, he began to beat him out of anger. So they stopped him, and that night in a dream, Radharani came to Hridaya Chaitanya and said, I gave him the name Shyamananda and that tilak. So in the morning, having had the darshan of Srimati Radharani who explained the situation, he went to Shyamananda. He put Shyamananda on his lap and began to cry and rub his head, saying that my life has now become perfect. So Shyamananda went on to be a great preacher of Krishna consciousness in Orissa, Utkal, and he had many famous disciples, and the foremost of which is Rasikananda Prabhu, and who's also has many great stories about his devotional service, just like Shyamananda. So we can remember these great devotees and ask for their mercy, so that we also can come to the point of wholeheartedly searching out for Krishna, as mentioned here in Srimad Bhagavatam, so that the Lord might be pleased to reveal himself to us. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? Comments? Corrections? Yes. Oh, sorry. Any other points?
Thank you for lecture. You told that when Balaram came to Vrindavan to pacify the gopis, he made their residence. And once I thought that here in Vrindavan, Balaram has his own forest and gopis, and Krishna separately has his own gopis and his forest place for residence. So Balaram, he was dancing with Krishna gopis or with his own gopis.
Yeah, that's a point that's made by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And, well, he says two things. He said that he danced with the gopis that were too young to dance with Krishna when Krishna was in Vrindavan. That's one thing he says. And then the other thing he says, Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the gopis that Krishna danced with were separate from the gopis that Krishna danced with. But Srila Prabhupada in the Krishna book just says that he danced with the gopis. So you can take any version you like. And there's one other point that he brings up, is that Well, if Balaram went back to Vrindavan, why didn't Krishna go back to Vrindavan? You know, if Balaram had such attachment for the residents of Vrindavan that he had to go and leave Dwarka and the Yadu dynasty, why didn't Krishna go? So Vishwanath says that the reason is that the Yadu dynasty wouldn't let him. They were keeping him there because they knew that if Krishna ever went to Vrindavan, his attachment for the residents of Vrindavan was so great, he'd never come back. So that way they would make arrangements for him not to go to Vrindavan. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.